tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, actually. So we are going to continue our lectures on Patisambhida Magga. We have done a few jnana so far, starting from, actually we did a sort of a extended study on Patisambhida jnanas, and then how they can be attained and how they become purified. They become verified, and then we moved on to discuss the 73 jnanas in the sequence they have been explained in the Patisambhida Magga. So last week, not the last week, the previous lesson, in the previous lesson we discussed the Dhammaṭṭhiti jnana, which is related to the contemplation of conditions or the causes of the realities. Then today we move on to the next stage of the vipassana, that is to say sammasana jnana, in which the yogi is supposed to contemplate the universal characteristics of the conditioned realities, having them grouped into various categories. So that would be a lesson. I was a bit late in sending the handout today, but I hope you got it in the WhatsApp. They will share it also in the chat box. So the topic is Atita Anagata Paccuppannanan Dhammanang Sankipitva Vattane Panya Sammasane Jnanam. Quite a long name for a jnana, but we'll try to analyze it word by word. Atitanagata Paccuppannanan Sankipit Dhammanang Sankipitva Vavatthane Pamnya Vavatthane Panya Sammasane Jnana. Right? These are the name, the full name of the jnana. So we have few phrases to analyze here. The first would be Atitanagata Paccuppannanan Dhammana. Then Sankipitva Vavatthane Panya Sammasane Jnana. So these are the phrases or the words that we are supposed to analyze. Now, giving a brief outlook about this wisdom, a yogi who has now, from the beginning of the 37 wisdoms, in the beginning we started the wisdom that is gained through listening, by learning. That was the Suttame Jnana, attained through listening to the talks. And obviously these days we can gain that knowledge by reading the books as well. Then that knowledge would act as the basis for our entire spiritual journey. Then based on that wisdom of Suttame Jnana, a yogi or a practitioner would adopt that and into their lives, and the person would start to live a life in accordance with the teachings. The first step would be to adhere to some training rules or the ethics that are designated as sila, that a person would have a virtuous life, restraining or abstaining himself from doing evil deeds and following a noble life. The wisdom that is involved or that is arising while protecting or keeping the precepts is called Silamaya Jnana. Then based on that Silamaya Jnana, one develops Samadhi, the concentration, and the wisdom which is involved in this with this concentration, especially when it reaches the levels of absorption or the access concentration, is called Samadhi Bhavanamaya Jnana. Then he moves, according to the Buddha, based on the Buddha's teaching, then we move, because Samadhi or the concentration is not the final attainment or the ultimate goal in our sasana. With the attainment of Samadhi, we just suppress the defilements rather than eradicating them. Therefore, in order to get out of samsara and to stop this cycle of rebirth, one has to go into the field of insight meditation, which we call Vipassana Bhavana. The first stage would be to dissect or to know the nama and rupa as they are, and to separate them mentally as an intellectual analysis and a meditative experience. Which is called Namarupa Paricheda Jnana, Vavattana Jnana, and that wisdom was not discussed in this 73 wisdoms, list of wisdoms. And then from Samadhi Bhavana, having done the Namarupa Paricheda, he moves on to a wisdom called Dhammaṭṭhiti Jnana. That was our previous topic in the previous lesson. In the Dhammaṭṭhiti Jnana, the yogi determines the causes and conditions of the realities, Sankata Dhammas. The conditioned realities, they all have certain causes. So the one has to determine what are the relevant causes of those particular conditioned realities. And that wisdom which examines and determines the causes is called Dhammaṭṭhiti Jnana. Now what happens is, from these two stages of differentiating nama and rupa and getting rid of the self view, which believes in mostly believes in a person who is a person who is believed to have mind and matter. By dissecting the nama and rupa, we get rid of that wrong view, and then we understand, or the yogi understand, what are the causes which produced this nama and rupa, or mind and matter. Why did they ever came into existence? Based on what? Was it? Then he understands that it was not a creation of a god, or it's not something that happens spontaneously without any cause. Then what he's supposed to do is to see the universal characteristics of nama and rupa. Universal characteristics of nama and rupa. In order to see the universal characteristics directly, or to have a clear apprehension or a clear understanding, one has to see the conditioned realities in their entirety. What is meant by seeing the conditioned realities in their entirety is because conditioned realities are existing as different units. It is not that just one mind is existing throughout the whole life, or one rupa is continuing to be there as a one unit. According to our teachings, the body is made out of various matter components, and at the same time mind is a combination of the consciousness and the mental factors. Then they arise in units. Each unit has a specific lifespan. One arises having not been before and vanishes into the non-existence. So every ultimate reality, conditioned ultimate reality other than Nibbana, has a genesis, arising and a passing away. So in between, this is their lifespan. So the reality arises having not been before and goes into extinction without leaving, without getting stored anywhere, So this is the condition. So seeing the conditioned reality in its entirety means seeing the rising and the falling of the reality. So only when this rising and falling is seen, the yogi is capable to know the universal characteristics directly with a clear apprehension or clear understanding. Because this two edges of the reality, the rising edge and the vanishing edge, which we can call two segments or two portions, or sometimes you can call them two ends all the words has been used in the literature for that. So, these two end, the rising end and the vanishing end, in between we see the ultimate reality, we get the ultimate reality. And this ultimate reality is not a thing or a substance, it is an intrinsic nature. Intrinsic nature. We have explained this in detail in our fundamental lectures. If someone is interested, you can go to those lectures and also get some understanding what is an intrinsic nature and what is meant by an ultimate reality and so forth, because I'm not able to explain them all in detail in this lecture, because my purpose is to go through the Patisambhida Magga. So a reality, when you see a reality is entirety doesn't mean that seeing it in and out and in its all characteristics and seeing its with all the aspects. No. Here, seeing the reality in its entirety means seeing its rising and falling and capturing it with mind as a one unit, and know that the reality was not there before its arising and it is no more after its vanishing. So, seeing this rising and falling would open the gate for the yogi to understand the universal characteristics. We have three universal characteristics in every conditioned reality. What are they? The nature of the characteristic of impermanence, not the impermanent. Impermanent is an adjectival noun. Impermanence is an abstract noun. It's a characteristic. It's sort of a nature. Impermanence. It's a universal. It's shared by all the conditioned realities. Then the characteristic of suffering. It's better to normally that's how it is translated in most of the places. But suffering here means a reality has the nature of begetting or causing suffering. That's what is meant here. Dukkha Lakkana means the nature of causing suffering, nature of being a condition to the suffering, or nature of being a basis for the suffering. That's what is meant by the term dukkha, dukkha lakkana. So, and then non-selfness, which is not normally it's not that word is not commonly found in English, but we do construct this in our Buddhist literature. Non-selfness, the nature of not being a self or nature of not being together with a self. The reality itself is itself is not a self. The reality itself is not a self. Self means not a atta. Then the reality is not together with another self. So these three universal characteristics are found in all the conditioned realities. So when we study the Dhamma, we understand this, and we sort of we have an intuition into it, or a imagination, or sometimes logically we may understand what is meant by these three characteristics. But in order to see them directly or to have a better grasping, which is adequate to eradicate the defilements, one has to have a clear apprehension on them. So in order to gain that, one has to see the rising and falling of the realities to have a direct experience on this. Normally, technically speaking, the knowledge about the three universal characteristics are categorized as the Anumana Jnana, the wisdom of inference in our tradition, within the Theravada tradition, which is a very basic fundamental. Normally, the direct knowledge is the understanding about the intrinsic characteristics. But anyway, we can say, just forget about that categorization. What we say is one has to have a direct experience. Experience means understanding about the rising and falling. This doesn't mean that you are supposed to see the rising and falling as it is happening. No, that's what is not meant. That is not what is meant here. What is meant here is the yogi is capable of understanding, having an understanding that a reality has arisen, reality arises having not been before, and it vanishes without leaving, without getting stored anywhere. So having a proper, deeper understanding about rising and falling would open the gate to see the universal characteristics clearly, to have an understanding about the universal characteristics. Whenever I say seeing or apprehension, I am not referring to anything like you are seeing something like a movie or seeing something through sort of an experience. Here, what is meant here is an understanding through the contemplation. One has an understanding that these realities have not been before and they would not last after their vanishing. So we'll talk about this understanding most probably in the next lecture, where we discuss about the 𝐷𝐴 ඥාන, and obviously when we go into the deeper topics in detail, we will be talking about this related to the vipassana meditation, because some people have some people believe that in order to do vipassana, one has to have a direct experience to see the things as they are in the present moment, which is not a fundamental in the Theravada tradition, which I can confirm. But if someone can do that, that would be nice. That would be an extra benefit for him or for her. But actually, you are not necessary to see them as they are in their present moment or their present condition. We'll talk about them later. So what happens here is, now knowing the rising and falling opens the gate to see or to understand the three universal characteristics. So before seeing the rising and falling, now if we recall the steps that we have come, now forget about the first three wisdoms, about this learnedness and the wisdom associated with sila and the wisdom associated with samadhi. In the vipassana practice, first the yogi separates nama and rupa and then see the causes of nama and rupa, conditions, paccaya. I'll write it as paccaya. Paccayas are also nama and rupa, nothing other than that. Then what he is supposed to do is to see the universal characteristics of nama and rupa. Nama and rupa. See the universal characteristics. Right? So before that, now in order to see the universal characteristics, to have a clear understanding about them, it's very clear that one should know the rising and, because think about the characteristic of impermanence. Impermanence itself implies that the reality goes into non-existence, or it gets vanished, it gets destroyed. So impermanence itself means it's not going to last after some time. It's not a permanent thing, it's not going to last forever. Therefore, when we say impermanence, implicitly we are talking about a vanishing, or at least in common day-to-day life, at least a decaying or a transformation of its actual form. So normally in Buddhism, when we talk about impermanence, we are implying about a vanishing. Therefore, to understand the real impermanence, one should know how a reality vanishes into extinction or vanishes into non-existence after it has existed. Then this also, and since these all realities are conditioned realities, that's why they were conditioned by the causes, we also should know that a reality has a beginning. Therefore, these realities go into impermanence or extinction, into non-existence, not having been in the past forever. Like it is not that the reality had no beginning but goes into non-existent or vanishes after some time. No, it was not there before a certain period. It came into existence suddenly and then it vanishes into thin air. Thin air means it goes away, it vanishes. But it becomes a cause for another reality to happen. That's a different case. Therefore, if you take the characteristic of impermanence itself, it implies that we are talking about a vanishing. Forget about rising. At least we are talking about vanishing. And then, based on the Buddhist philosophy and the teachings, it's also clear this reality was not there from a beginningless beginning. It's not that it had a beginningless like previous end. So it also came into existence from non-existence. So therefore, these realities have a rising and falling. Only when we know that reality has arisen and vanishes one day, then the idea of impermanence becomes clearer. impermanence become clearer. So if something is impermanent in this particular nature, in a way that momentarily rising and falling, obviously this cannot lead to ultimate happiness, because even if it is a unpleasant state or a reality, its arising would be a suffering. No one would enjoy that if it is unpleasant reality. And if it is a very pleasant reality, even if we get attached to it, obviously we are going to suffer because of its passing away. Therefore, this rising and falling, that impermanent nature or nature of impermanence, directly leads to the nature of suffering or for causing suffering. If a reality is impermanent, that reality is a cause for the mental and physical suffering. And then it also implies, if a reality arises and vanishes, arises due to causes, paccaya, and vanishes as the natural law, according to the natural law. Realities doesn't vanish because the causes are vanishing, or not because they are not getting the support of causes. No. It's true that realities are arising because of the causes, but for their vanishing, momentarily vanishing, you don't need any cause. It's a natural law. It's a natural law. Anything that has arisen undergoes the phenomenon called decaying, and eventually it vanishes. So what is necessary now? Then sometimes one might think like, hetum paticca sambhutang hetu banga nirujjati. So what does it mean? If something arises due to causes and vanishes due to the vanishing of causes. So hetubanga nirujjati means it's not about the momentarily vanishing. It's about the cessation. It's about the cessation or destruction of the unarisen realities. Realities that have not arisen. So when you remove the cause, those realities which were supposed to arise would not arise, they go into cessation. So when we say the reality passes away or goes into cessation due to the destruction of causes, that implies to the cessation of the realities that have not arisen. Anuppada nirodha, the cessation of the realities that have not arisen. For a reality which has a momentary existence, you don't need any cause for its passing away. It would naturally pass away. It would naturally pass away. No one can stop it. Even all the causes keep on supporting, still it would pass away. Therefore, it's also a very important fundamental that we need to keep in mind. Now, in order to see the impermanent suffering and non-self, it is very vital that we see the rising and falling. But what happens is, now, according to the psychological development in Vipassana meditation, after seeing the causes of the Nama and Rupa, what one is supposed to do is to see the three universal characteristics. And in order to do that, you have to see the rising and falling. But what the Buddha and the teachers have done, especially expressed in the Patisambhida Magga and in various sutras and also in the commentaries, ancient commentaries, what they have done is they have brought in a special contemplation knowledge in between these two stages. In between these, this is an extra technique that was put into this Vipassana practice. But technically speaking, this wisdom that we are going to put in is not necessary. Because after seeing the causes of the conditioned realities, what one is supposed to do is to contemplate the universal characteristics. In order to contemplate the universal characteristics, anicca, dukkha and anatta, one has to see the rising and passing away, rising and falling. Rising and falling. So before that, we are instructed to do an extra meditation practice. And that meditation practice is called sammasana jnana, sammasana. That is what we are discussing today. So in sammasana jnana, sammasane jnanang, sammasana means, it comes from the word samma, amasana. Amasana, sammasana. Amasana means when these two words are connected, we get sammasana with a root connected to this word samma. So now what does it mean? Samma means correctly, properly, without making a fault. Amasana means touching or rubbing. And repeatedly rubbing or repeatedly touching, this is not a physical touch, it's a mental touch. Rubbing the reality, mentally rubbing the reality in a proper way. What does it mean? Seeing the reality in its actual nature. Seeing the reality in its actual nature. So if you rub the reality, mentally rub or hold or grasp the reality wrongly, then it's called paramatta. Paramatta also comes, amatta, amasana, touching. Paramasa or paramasa, the word is paramasa. Paramatta is the reality which is being touched. Paramasa comes, it also comes with the root, like the meaning amasana, touching. Paramasana means touching having gone beyond the true nature. Touching the reality having gone beyond the true nature. That's called paramasa. It implies wrong view. With ditti also we touch the reality, mentally touch the reality, but not in its actual nature. Sorry. Having gone beyond. No, when the reality is impermanent, the person thinks it's permanent. When the reality is actually non-self, person thinks, the being thinks it is self. When the reality is actually causing suffering, the person thinks it's causing happiness, it's a cause for the happiness. So these are touching or mental touches or rubbing done having gone beyond the actual nature. So they go extra mileage or they go further than what is required and touches it wrongly. But with sammasana, he touches the reality correctly. Sammasana, repeatedly touching the reality correctly, and it means seeing its true nature. That's what is meant by sammasana jnana. So one is supposed to keep on seeing the true natures of the realities. What are the true natures? Anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Three characteristics. And he is supposed to see the three characteristics again. That is, having seen the rising and falling. Here, what they are doing is contemplating the conditioned realities as anicca, dukkha, and anatta without giving attention to the rising and falling. That's the difference here. So in the end, we are doing the same thing. In both these stages, we are seeing observing the rising and the three characteristics of the realities. But in the actual stage of the vipassana, we do it having seen the rising and falling. Here we do it without bothering about the rising and falling. Without bothering about the rising and falling. So what we are supposed to do, what the yogi is supposed to do is to sankipitva. Sankipitva is by having abridged, having collected, having made them into a group. Sankipitva. Vavattane, determining, panya, wisdom. With this sammasana jnana, one determines things as impermanent, suffering, and non-self. What is the determination? It determines these are impermanent realities, these are realities which bring suffering, and these are the realities which are not self. And that wisdom, it equals to this jnana. So it determines, this wisdom determines the true natures of the realities. It's very important that we come into a determination. Determination means when you see a reality in its actual nature, we get convinced about it. And that conviction is very important to get rid of the defilements. Actually, one who has seen the true natures is very well established on the reality or the truth. We normally say he's unshaken. He's unshakable like a post, a gate post in the Kila due to the wind that is coming from all the directions. If someone has seen the true natures of the reality, if someone has penetrated the nirvana and seen it, he cannot be persuaded, or his views cannot be changed by any means, because he has the proper understanding or direct experience on the realities. So Vavattana means coming into a conclusion. So obviously you have to analyze and see the true natures. Only when the seeing element you have you get understand, you start to see it as it is, then you get convinced. And that determination, the wisdom in determining the true natures of the realities is called Vivattane Panya. So how does he determine and come into this conclusion about the realities? Having abridged, having collected what? Atita anagata pachuppannanang dhammana. So he brings this nama rupa which were known through the previous wisdoms, of which the characteristics were known, of which the conditions were known, and he is going to, the person is categorizing these nama and rupa. Already he has categorized them into two groups, mind and matter. In the matter side, there are the realities that get molested due to being struck by opposing natures were called rupa, and the realities that bend towards the object, which observes the object, which cognizes the object, were called nama. And then these nama and rupa were put into 5 groups by some yogis, by some into 12 groups representing ayatanas, 5 group representing the khandhas, by some into 18 representing the elements, dhatus. Then what he does is, now imagine these were put into 5 groups of khandhas. He has already determined them. This is not a self, these are 5 aggregates, and these 5 aggregates are caused by these conditions. And then what he is doing is, before contemplating, before coming into this contemplation, what he does is, he abridges these realities and put them into various groups, all the past, present, future realities, collect them. Now already they have been put into 5 groups, 5 khandhas or 12 ayatanas, and then regroup them into 11 categories. What are these 11 categories? We are not going to talk in detail because this is an introduction to all the wisdoms. Later on we are going to talk them in detail when we come to that places. Now, what are the 11 categories? So the realities that have arisen and passed away are called past realities. Realities that have not arisen yet are called future realities, anagata realities. The realities that have arisen but still in the stages of rising and still in their intrinsic nature, which have not yet passed away, are called pachuppanna realities. Then the realities of the internal, which are considered as mine or I, myself, are called ajjata realities. Realities of the inanimate bodies and of the other beings are called bahidha realities. Some realities are considered inferior, some are considered superior. For example, some rupas in our body or rupas of certain animals are considered inferior. Rupas of certain divine beings, very attractive ones, very brighter ones, are considered superior. Then some rupas, some realities are gross. For instance, some rupas of humans are gross, while the rupas of divine beings are subtle, and the akusala, unwholesome consciousness is gross compared to the wholesome consciousness, which is a subtle reality. So likewise we divide them. So gross and subtleness is another category. Superiority and low and superior, inferior and superior nature of realities are another category. Past, present, future is another category. Internal, external is another category. And far away and close by, nearby. Far away and nearby. There are various ways to categorize. One category is if some reality is close to you, it's a close reality. One reality is far away, it's a far away reality. Sometimes we say based on rupas, the rupas which strike with each other, the sappatiga rupas are close by, the sukuma rupas are far away. So there are various ways to categorize them. So what the yogi is supposed to do is put these 5 aggregates. The realities were first. Realities, all the past, present, future realities, past, present, future realities were put into 5 aggregates: Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, and Vijnana. And then each of these khandhas are put into 11 groups, 11 each. then what he does is, all the rupas of the past, all the rupas of the internal, which are internal, all the external rupa, all the Vedana, internal Vedana, external Vedana, gross Vedana, subtle Vedana, they all have the universal characteristic for impermanent suffering and also. This kind of a contemplation should be done. That's what is meant by Sammasana Jnana. He keeps on doing this contemplation. This is also called Kalapa Sammasana. Kalapa Sammasana means we categorize the realities into these groups. There are two groupings. First we categorize them into 5 aggregates, and then we recategorize them into 11 groups, each aggregate. So then we have altogether, if you take 55 categories, right, 55. So each of 55 groups, each of these group is contemplated as all the realities in that particular group is anicca, impermanent, suffering and non-self. So we multiply it by 3, then we have 165. I hope my calculation was correct. 11 into 5, 55, 55 into 3, 165. Yes, we have 165 contemplations. So this is called Sammasana, and this is also called Ṇaya Vipassana. Ṇaya Vipassana. Vipassana done following certain methods. So what was the method? One method is contemplating external rupa as impermanent, past rupa as impermanent, future rupa as suffering, future Vedana as non-self. So likewise, it's done methodically. So that is called Ṇaya Vipassana. So therefore, this wisdom which involves in this contemplation is called Sammasana Jnana. So that's how this term came into usage. Atitanagata paccuppannanan dhammanang sankipitva, having abridged all these realities into groups, vavattane panya, the wisdom that determines them, and as impermanent suffering and non-self is called the Sammasana Jnana. So that's the explanation about this wisdom, and this wisdom comes after the Dhammattiti Jnana, before the Udyabhaya Jnana. But the interesting point is, some teachers do not advocate this contemplation, because in order to do this contemplation, you have to collectively take these realities and do a contemplation. You are supposed to contemplate atitang rupang aniccang, anagatang rupang aniccang, and so forth. When you contemplate, you have to focus on the reality and do the contemplation. With the mind, you are supposed to rub the reality in its intrinsic nature and see its true natures and try to find out, try to understand their true natures. So when you keep on doing that, the wisdom will arise. So some teachers suggest, rather than spending time in the Sammasana Jnana, they move into this second wisdom of seeing the rising and falling. So some teachers, some famous teachers are advocating this. They suggest that Sammasana Jnana is not something, some even say that it is not a specific meditation technique, especially Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, who propagated this very famous method, is not advocating to do a Sammasana Jnana. He suggests that these are the wisdom, these are the knowledges that naturally come into the yogi while they do the contemplation. But actually, it's specifically mentioned in the commentaries and the Visuddhimagga to do it as a separate meditation practice. Therefore, not only in these days actually, when the sub-commentary for Visuddhimagga was written, some ancient teachers have advocated the Vipassana practice omitting this Sammasana Jnana, which is also correct, which is not a wrong thing, But the sub-commentator says, since it has been emphasized in the Patisambhida Magga very clearly, with a very separate chapter, separate chapter means a separate wisdom, and also emphasized in many sutras and in the commentaries very specifically to do this, because normally we repeat this contemplation, sort of a contemplation in the higher stages as well. So it is highly recommended that one does Sammasana Jnana before moving into Udyabhaya. It may take some time, but that would eventually increase your wisdom, and sub-commentators are saying this wisdom is capable of suppressing the views of ahankara and mamankara, the idea of I, the asmimana, and mama, that is tanha, grasping as mine, because wrong view will be suppressed by the first two stages, the wrong view, atta self view is suppressed by the Namarupa Paricheda Jnana, and the view about the future lives or the past lives, what happens to this self after the death would be suppressed or would be affected by the Namarupa Paricheda Jnana. Then the wrong, the idea of conceit, asmimana, that I am existing or I am a specific, a certain person who has some dignity, and also grasping as mine has to be suppressed. And that specifically, the Sammasana Jnana can be used for that, and the sub-commentators say, since this Sammasana Jnana is capable of suppressing ahankara and mamankara, though some teachers say, or though some teachers avoid this Sammasana Jnana, it is highly recommended that one practice on it. So that would be the explanation. I don't think we don't need to read it actually. I hope you can read by yourself, and hope you got a better understanding about the wisdom. So I would conclude my lecture. Next week we are going to talk about the Udayabbaya Jnana, which will also be an interesting topic, because out of these Atita Anagata Pachuppanna Jnanas, only the Pachuppanna will be the focus on the Udayabbaya Jnana. And that's not the Pachuppanna of the present moment. I have to emphasize on this. No, that's not the Pachuppanna of the present moment. So why from Sammasana to Udayabbaya this change had happened, I will explain it very clearly, and it has a logic, very important logic. So that based on this change from Sammasana to Udayabbaya Jnana, emphasizing only on Pachuppanna, some tend to believe that Vipassana has to be done on the present moment, which is a misleading statement. Because it's very clear in the entire Tipitaka and also in the entire commentary. There's no such a thing called present moment meditation. If someone does, that's okay, that's fine, that's not an issue. It's not wrong at all. You can implement that as a technique, but if someone tries to emphasize that Vipassana has to be done exactly on the present moment, seeing the present realities as they are, which is a misleading statement. So, and this, the wisdom, Udayabbaya Jnana, the statement has also contributed to this. It's not a fault of that statement actually. It's a problem because some people tend to expound what they prefer, their own experience as, and they try to generalize it, the entire Theravada practice, which is a dangerous thing in my opinion. So then we'll move on to the next wisdom, and there we'll have a better comparison about the Sammasana Jnana and Udayabbaya Jnana as well. So I conclude the lecture, giving the opportunity to ask questions.
May I have your permission, Venerable Sir?
Yes.
You explained everything very well, and actually there are no questions of what you said. But in your lecture now, you elaborate a little bit on the Pachuppanna, and you mentioned the three, that is Addha Pachuppanna, Santati Pachuppanna, and Anaha Pachuppanna. That is there in your lecture note. So I would like once more clarification about Santati Pachuppanna, because Santati actually can be defined the way you want to take it, is my understanding. That is, it could be 100 Chittaviti, or it could be 200, or even including several existences, or it can be defined in any way you want to suit the Dhamma explanation you are going to do. Am I right if I take it like that?
Yes, there's no issue in that, but when we say Santati Pachuppanna, I will discuss it in detail when we come to the, it won't happen very soon actually, because the Sammasana Jnana is, because we'll have to spend a lot of time in the Suttamaya Jnana. But anyway, I'll touch upon that next week as well. Santati Pachuppanna, there's an actual definition in our Sasana. Santati Pachuppanna for Chittaja Rupas, for Utuja Rupas, or for Aharaja Rupas, there are specific definitions. For Kammaja Rupas, there's no Santati Pachuppanna, only the Addha Pachuppanna is taken. But as you said, for the practical purposes, it is perfectly okay. It is perfectly okay if you take your Santati as you like. That's no problem at all. But normally when you take 2-3 lives, that is, the term has to be Addha Pachuppanna. Addha is one life actually. If you take 2-3 lives, that is a few 2-3 Addhas. But still, what matters is how long you take the santati, it has a beginning and it has an end, and it denotes that it is not a permanent reality. So how long the santati doesn't matter, but Visuddhimagga suggests that to get more deeper understanding or sharpen your wisdom, inside wisdom, make the santati short as possible. So it comes to the shortest santati while explaining how rupas rise and pass away, while keeping a step. He divides the commentary divides the step into 6 categories, 6 groups, and explain that rupas in each portion would not move into the other portion. As you said, because we also have another Paccuppanna in this category, specifically for the rupa, suggested for the rupa, which is called Samaya Paccuppanna, the 4th type of Paccuppanna. So Samaya Paccuppanna is all the rupas in the morning are taken as a one reality. All the rupas in the evening are taken as a one reality. So based on that, you can define your own santati for your practice. But speaking doctrinally wise, if I say what is the santati Paccuppanna of chitta rupas, all the rupas arising in one chitta viti. That's the normal santati Paccuppanna. But if you take few chitta vitis as a one chitta and do the santati, that's perfectly okay. That's what is normally done in some sammasana jnana practices. Because sammasana jnana has various modes to conduct sammasana jnana, rupa sattaka, arupa sattaka, and it can also be practiced as 40 chattali sakara maha vipassana. And it can be done as the 11 modes introduced in sutras. So sammasana jnana can be done in various modes and various ways. So therefore, as you said, you can take your santati as much as you like, but technically speaking, there are definitions.
Thank you very much, and you always help us deepen our knowledge, and much merits to you for that. And I only beg you to continue these lectures without too many breaks.
Yeah, it was because of the unavoidable circumstances I had to stop. Yeah, I'll try my best to continue this. I do enjoy the Patisambhida lectures actually.
Yes. Much merits to you, sir.
Okay, then there's no questions. So I hope you enjoy the lecture. And next week we are going to talk a very interesting topic of Udayabbaya Jnana and move forward on the list of 73 wisdoms. Okay, may you all be happy, and may this merit of discussing Dhamma help us to attain the final liberation and also for the continuation of the sasana. Buddha sasanang chirantittatu, Buddha sasanang chirantittatu, Buddha sasanang chirantittatu, sadhu sadhu sadhu.